As you know, like other global countries, in Bangladesh, there is a large population of Muslim people who type 2 diabetic patients do fast during Ramadan period. At this moment, we have our diabetic population in our country, 84 lakhs, what is estimated by International Diabetic Federation. Assuming the number of population of Muslims in Bangladesh about 90%, we can assume the diabetic Muslim population about 76 lakhs in our country. As like other study, diabetic Muslim population, most of them are very high risk to have the fasting during Ramadan period. Even they are exempted from the fasting. Many of them fast during Ramadan despite their health the risk, like the repeater study and grid study. As like that, in our country also we have done our studies. So why we have seen that nearly 60% do their fast toward the whole month of Ramadan. Though the most important point is that the patient with the diabetic population have the high risk to develop hypoglycemia, then the hyperglycemia and dehydration. We have heard from our previous speaker about the dehydration and also decay. The occurrence of decay is less. That while like the patient come to us for taking the advice of what do they do during the Ramadan period as a risk quantification, whether they do can fast or they do not fast, heavy high risk or low risk people, type of diabetes, situation of diabetes, presence of hypoglycemia experience previously, about the status of glycemic control, type of treatment they are getting, whether they do their monitoring the blood sugar, acute complication, pregnancy, renal complication, other comorbid conditions, and the physical activities and the previous ongoing accident. We have to consider all the factors during the risk stratification of whether they can do fast or not do fast. Before when they come to us for the advice, so we always give them the Ramadan focus education program, where we have advised them about the lifestyle modification like diet plan, physical activity, glucose monitoring, how to initiate the drugs during the initiating of the Ramadan period, and during the Ramadan period modification of drugs is necessary sometimes. And the diabetic therapy can be also be modified whenever that is needed. Even then, we know that that is the GLP-1 analogs, glucose transmitter that does not cause hypoglycemia, they don't require any dose adjustment, but because of the sulfonyl already heard from my previous speaker of the hypoglycemia evidence and the insulin treatment, they need some modification at initiation and during the period of fasting period. And most of the guidelines are given by the AD and DAR have their own statement about the modification of this medication based on the scientific evidences in our hand. And the SGLT2 inhibitor is now becoming one of the emerging and novel drugs in the field of management of diabetes, and considered an important class of agent in management. And because of the evidences what we have gained from Paris trial about the benefit of the cardiovascular and metabolic effect of what we can get in the diabetic patient. So these are people find they like to do fast during period of Ramadan. They need some management strategies and education and how they use this SGLT2 inhibitor as a whole. Even then, we have some concern about the use of this agent while they like to do fasting during Ramadan period. And the concern most of this use of this SGLT2 during Ramadan period about the volume depletion, they can cause the dehydration, they can cause the hypotension, they can cause glycemic diabetic ketoacidosis, even they can also have experience of the mycotic fungal genital infection. But most of the panelists or expert opinions is that so far they gain the knowledge about the evidences in our hand about the different members of the SGLT2 suggest that the drugs itself can be used in people with diabetes during fasting during Ramadan, but if they can given the appropriate patient selection and education. There's some of the limited publication in our hand about the use of SGLT2 inhibitor as a whole in the type 2 diabetes during Ramadan period. One is that the open label down the SAUM from the Malaysia about 110 patients of randomized open label study where they compare the above refluxacin versus the sulfonylurea about the incidence and prevalence of the symptomatic hypoglycemia, documented hypoglycemia. Similarly, keto study done by the Mohammed Musnain to see the hypoglycemia evidences frequency between the ecanafloxacin versus the sulfonylurea group. And there's also an absorption study done in Singapore to see the ketonemia in the by fasting plasma beta acid estimation during before Ramadan period between the study between the groups of empathifloxacin or ecanafloxacin comparing with the non-SGLT2 therapy. And a real world study done by the Bashir, where the dapagliflozin, ecanafloxacin with the concomitant use of insulin and the drug to teach the frequency and severity of hypoglycemia events, also the dehydration during Ramadan period. One of the study done by the Mohammed Hussain of the keto studies where the ecanafloxacin was compared with the sulfonylurea before and post Ramadan period, and that they found the significant difference also found in the A1C weight reduction, managed the blood pressure also. And if you see the hypoglycemic events, we can get the higher incidence of the hypoglycemia in the sulfonylurea group than if you compare with the ecanafloxacin group. Similarly, switching from the sulfonylurea to SGLT2 in a fasting Ramadan period, you can also see the symptomatic hypoglycemia or documented hypoglycemia found to be higher in different group of sulfonylurea than if you compare the dapagliflozin comparator as a comparator. Alauddin Bashir also have some studies to see the evidences of the efficacy of the safety of the sodium SGLT2 during Ramadan period. They found that higher incidence of the hypoglycemia patient who was getting the SGLT2 insulin and they compare with the SGLT2 other anti-diabetic agent in his study. Whatever we get still now regarding the SGLT2 Ramadan fasting, about 5 or 6 clinical trials done. One is Malaysia, one in Singapore, several done in the United Arab Emirates, Middle East countries, and the trial includes the ecanafloxacin, dapagliflozin. Only the hypoglycemia found to lower in the if you compare the sulfonylurea group. Thirst and high are found to be higher, volume depletion found to be equal, and weight loss also found to be equal. There's no difference. No cases found in the decay, and no increased case of genital tract infection on the study. So, to our aim or that to evaluate the efficacy and safety of the empathifloxacin, though there's no other studies done so far in patient or type 2 diabetic patient who like to fast during Ramadan period in our Bangladeshi population. And why this study was needed, because there is no study done before with the empathifloxacin. Those studies done in ecanafloxacin and dapagliflozin while fasting period in Ramadan. Now in our country, the last population of Muslim people do their fast during Ramadan period. So it is our unmet need to see the efficacy and safety data empathifloxacin in this group of population. And after the protocol, we have designed and reviewed by our investigator, and after getting the ethical committee the permission, we have done several meeting with our investigator to facilitate the proper conduct of study. And the screening period started 3 months before Ramadan, and we had started our enrollment 1 month before the Ramadan. So far, we have 746 patients was enrolled in the first visit, and after we have to do some protocol amendment because at that time we had the COVID peak hours in our condition in our country. So we have taken the data who cannot come to us face to face, so by WhatsApp or telemedicine or telephone call to get the data. And the second follow-up done within the 1 month after the Eid period. After the ending of the study, we reviewed the data, and in the data, we ultimately got the complete data about 509 patients. And that analysis was done and reviewed by our investigator. So far, we have the objectives and aims of also this that to see the efficacy and safety of empathifloxacin. We have the secondary objective about the volume depletion, about the evaluate of the hypoglycemic events, blood pressure changes, evaluate any change of the EGFR, to evaluate any other adverse effect in our study. Accordingly, we have also inclusion criteria. Exclusion criteria, we did not take any type 1 diabetic patient and type 2 who are taking sulfonylurea and the insulin we did not take in our study. Patient who have history of severe hypoglycemia even within the or 3 months before the study enrollment, who have the severe volume depletion, we do not take it, and who have already history of diabetic ketoacidosis or the EGFR less than 45 did not included in our study, or patient is a very current neurotic infection did not take in our study. If you see the baseline the data about the age and the weight and the BMI and the blood pressure, in even the HbA1c, more or less the similar in the both the study arm and the competitor arm. If you see the result at the end of our study, we have seen the significant differences found in the AMPA arm and the competitor about the weight reduction, about the blood pressure reduction, both systolic and diastolic, about the glycemic hemoglobin level, and there's no difference between the EGFR before the starting or before after the study between the two groups. If you see the HbA1c reduction, the significant reduction of HbA1c we can find in the our AMPA group than the competitor group. If you see the weight reduction, also found a significant difference, get to more better benefit we can get by AMPA group and then the competitor group. If you see the blood pressure, also shows systolic diastolic blood pressure found to be significantly different between the two groups. And adverse event, we have seen the genital aortic infection in the AMPA group is 2.1% and competitor group 1.8%, more or less similar. Volume depletion about 2.6%, and here in the competitor group without AMPA 1.8%. Hypoglycemic events is 2 found in the AMPA group, and the 1 is found in the competitor group. We have done the sub-analysis of the groups of our study. The one group is the metformin and the DB4 inhibitor in one group, and patient is getting the metformin DB4 inhibitor and added by the empagliflozin. The baseline data are more or less the same in between the two groups. If you see the results, we can see the significant difference is found between the groups who are taking the metformin DB4 inhibitor and who was getting the metformin DB4 inhibitor plus empagliflozin, about the weight, about the blood pressure reduction, about the HbA1c better result we can get in the empagliflozin group. If you see the adverse event, E2I we found the 1.2 in the AMPA group. Similarly, we can go to 1.2. Volume depletion about 7.2%, but in the competitor group only 1.2, and the hypoglycemic event 1.2, and there is no hypoglycemic event found in the competitor group. If you see the another sub-analysis where the patient is only getting metformin continue during Ramadan period, and patient is getting metformin and the empagliflozin is that large group here we have seen. So there's the sub-analysis was done before that one. AMPA group, you can see the baseline data are more or less the same. If you see the end result of the AMPA group, you can see if you compare the competitor group, we get better reduction of the weight we can get. BMI and the blood pressure reduction also found here, and the HbA1c reduction also better in the AMPA group. There's no change in the EGFR. If you see the adverse events, you can see the ETI with 2.5 in the AMPA group and 2.3 in the competitor group. Volume depletion of only 1 because 0.5%, and here we can get the competitor group about 2.3%. Hypoglycemic events is found in the AMPA group 1, and the competitor group is also 1. The percentage of the patient having the good glycemic control, that means achieving the HbA1c less than 7% in the AMPA group before the start before Ramadan, we found that 10% has found to be HbA1c less than 7, and there's a great improvement of our after fasting second visit. It is 25% people have the HbA1c can achieve by less than 7%, and then if you see the competitor group, only few percentage is found to be improved after during Ramadan period. So in our study, the satisfactory evidence and efficacy of the empagliflozin was found with the minimum adverse effect in patient fasting during Ramadan period, as was found in SGLT2 inhibitor during the other Ramadan period, empagliflozin or dapagliflozin. And thanks you very much. And I also acknowledge all the investigator helping me to conduct this study, and also the Radiant Pharma to help us to conduct this study. Thank you very much.